I walked in, my heart pounding. She was sitting there, acting like everything was fine. But I knew. The phone in my hand was all the proof I needed. Jessica had been cheating on me, and I had the messages, the hotel receipts, everything. I could feel the rage building inside me, but I kept calm. "Who is he?" I asked, my voice cold. She froze. For a second, her mask slipped. But then, with a fake smile, she said, "What are you talking about?" But I wasn't backing down. I needed to hear the truth from her own lips. As she tried to cover it up, I asked again, "Who is he?" And that's when everything changed. Jessica's face stiffened, the smile slowly fading. She tried to act calm, but I could see the panic in her eyes. For a split second, I saw her as she truly was, caught. I wasn't sure if it was fear or guilt that was making her squirm, but I had her. I had all the proof, and now I needed answers. I held the phone out in front of her. The messages were clear, and the receipts didn't lie. She had been lying to me for months, sneaking around, playing me for a fool. And now, the moment of truth had arrived. "Tell me, Jessica, who is he?" My voice was steady, but underneath, it shook with rage. I had never felt this kind of betrayal before, never imagined my own wife could be capable of something like this. We had built our life together, and she just threw it all away without a second thought. Jessica looked at me, her eyes darting around, calculating. She knew she was cornered. She had nowhere to hide. But still, she refused to give me the satisfaction of an honest answer. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said, her voice trembling slightly, but trying to hold on to some semblance of control. "There's no one else, I swear." The word stung. How could she stand there and lie to my face, knowing she had been sleeping with another man behind my back? How could she stand there and try to manipulate me like I was some naive idiot? I was done with her lies. "I know everything, Jessica," I snapped, stepping closer to her. "Don't you dare lie to me anymore. I saw the hotel receipt. I saw the messages. I know about him." My chest was tight, my fists clenching at my sides as I fought to keep my cool. The anger inside me was bubbling over, but I couldn't let it get the best of me. Not yet. Her expression shifted, but only for a moment. There was a flicker of guilt, a crack in her perfect mask. For a split second, she looked like she might break. But then, just as quickly, she hardened again. "Fine," she said, her voice low and cold now. "So what if I've been seeing someone? What do you expect me to do? Sit here and pretend everything's fine? You were never there for me the way I needed. I needed someone who actually saw me." The words hit like a slap to the face. I staggered back, not from physical impact, but from the weight of what she had just said. "I was there for you," I muttered, the pain in my voice barely audible. "I gave you everything." But she was relentless. Her eyes narrowed, and her tone grew sharper. "You gave me nothing. You were always too busy with work, too focused on your own life. I was lonely, and he made me feel alive. He made me feel important. I didn't ask for any of this, but I couldn't keep pretending anymore. It's not just a fling, it's real." I felt my world shatter into pieces. I had tried, for so long, to be the best husband I could be. I had worked hard, tried to provide, tried to make her feel loved and wanted. But it wasn't enough. And now, she was telling me that she had found someone else, a man who made her feel important. It was like a dagger to the heart. "Don't you dare try to justify this," I said through clenched teeth. "You're a liar and a cheat. You've destroyed everything we had." Jessica didn't even flinch. She was cold, almost indifferent now. "Maybe I have, but I don't regret it." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She didn't regret it? She didn't regret throwing away everything we had for someone else? "You really think you can just walk away from this?" I demanded, my voice trembling with a mix of rage and disbelief. "You think I'll just sit here and accept it? After everything you've done to me?" Jessica sighed, a bored expression settling on her face. "What do you want me to say, John? I can't change what happened. I don't love you anymore. I never wanted to hurt you, but I did, and I can't take that back." Her words stung like a physical blow. I couldn't believe she was standing there, saying all of this with such cold indifference. The woman I thought I knew, the woman I had shared my life with, was gone. And in her place stood a stranger who seemed to have no remorse for what she had done. I felt like I was losing my grip on everything. On her, on my life, on my future. I had never felt so empty, so betrayed in my entire life. But then, something inside me clicked. I wasn't going to let her win. I wasn't going to let her destroy me. She thought she had won, that she had broken me, But she was wrong. This was my turning point. I was done. Done with the lies. Done with the betrayal. Done with her. But I couldn't let go of the rage just yet. Not until I confronted the man who had been sleeping with my wife. Not until I made him understand that there were consequences for crossing the line. I stood there, feeling like my world had crumbled around me. Everything I had worked for, everything I thought I knew about Jessica, was a lie. And what hurt the most wasn't just the betrayal. It was the utter coldness with which she stood there, not a hint of remorse in her eyes. I had never felt so small, so utterly powerless in my life. But then, just as I was about to speak again, I saw something shift in her. A momentary crack in her mask. It was so brief, so subtle, that I almost missed it. But it was enough to make my heart race with a flicker of hope. "Do you even care?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Do you care at all about what this is doing to me? To us?" Her expression faltered for just a second, and I could see the guilt creeping in. She opened her mouth to say something, but I cut her off. "Don't. Just don't. You've said enough." My voice was firm now, no longer trembling. I couldn't let her manipulate me any longer. "You want to leave? Fine. But you're not just walking away like nothing happened. You don't get to do this to me and just expect me to be okay with it." Jessica opened her mouth, probably to say something defensive, but I didn't care anymore. I was done listening to her lies. "I'm going to find him," I said, my voice steady. "I'm going to find the man who thinks he can have my wife. And when I do, I'll make sure he understands that there are consequences to his actions." She laughed, but it wasn't a laugh of amusement. It was empty, bitter. "You think you're going to do something? You think this is all about you?" She stepped closer, her face now inches from mine. "I've already made my choice. And it's not you." I swallowed hard, fighting the urge to lash out. I didn't want to stoop to her level. I wasn't like her. But the pain was still fresh, still raw. "You really think I'm just going to let you walk away from this?" I asked again. "You've destroyed everything we had, Jessica. And you think you can just walk away, like none of it matters?" For a moment, she looked like she might answer, but then her expression hardened again. She shrugged, as if none of it mattered. "I don't know what you want me to say, John. I don't want to fight anymore. I just want to move on. I don't need you holding me back." "Then go," I said, my voice cold. "Go to him. But don't think for a second that I'm going to make this easy for you. You don't get to just walk away from this without facing the consequences. Not after what you've done." Jessica turned her back to me, grabbing her bag and heading toward the door. "I'm done," she said over her shoulder, her voice now emotionless. "You'll figure it out." I didn't move. I didn't stop her. I just stood there, staring at the door as she walked out of my life. It felt like a part of me had just died with her departure. I didn't know what was worse, the pain of losing her or the realization that I had spent years loving a woman who didn't even care about me. But I wasn't about to let her be the one to control the narrative. I wasn't about to let her walk out and think that I would just let her go without a fight. She had made her choice. Now, it was my turn to make mine. The days after Jessica left were a blur. I found myself waking up every morning with a pit in my stomach, that hollow feeling of betrayal gnawing at me. I kept replaying everything in my head, trying to make sense of what had happened, of how things had gotten so messed up. But there was one thing I knew for sure. I wasn't going to let her win. I wasn't going to let her walk away like she had somehow done the right thing. No, she had ruined everything. She had shattered my trust, my love, and my faith in her. And now, it was time for me to take control of the situation. I had to make a choice. The first part of that choice was confronting the man who had been sleeping with my wife. I didn't know who he was, but I was determined to find out. He needed to understand that there were consequences for crossing the line with me. He needed to know that I wasn't going to sit idly by and let him get away with it. I did some digging. It didn't take long to find out where he worked. Her mysterious lover, the man she had been so careful to keep hidden from me. His name was Mark. He worked at a nearby law firm. The thought of it made my blood boil. Mark. It sounded so normal, so innocent. But it was anything but. He was the one who had been betraying me behind my back. The one who had taken what was mine. I couldn't let this go. I made a plan. I wasn't going to just call him up and talk to him. No, I needed to make him feel what I was feeling. I wanted him to understand the anger, the pain, the heartbreak. I wasn't going to let him just walk away from this. The night after Jessica left, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, all I could see was her face, the look of indifference in her eyes, as if she had already moved on. And it was hard for me to accept. No, It was impossible that she could just throw everything away so easily. It was even harder to swallow the idea of this stranger, Mark, being the reason for it. I had to confront him. I didn't care if it seemed crazy. What mattered was that he had crossed a line, and I wasn't going to let him get away with it. I wasn't going to let him believe that he could just take something that was mine without facing the consequences. I arrived at the law firm just after hours, when most of the offices were empty. I had done my research. He wasn't going to be hard to find. I walked into the lobby, and there he was, sitting at his desk, sorting through papers. He looked up when I walked in, his expression polite, but there was a flicker of surprise in his eyes when he recognized me. I could tell he knew exactly who I was. I didn't waste any time. "Mark," I said, my voice steady, but the anger bubbling just beneath the surface. "We need to talk." He looked at me for a moment, then stood up. "Is everything all right?" he asked, his voice dripping with fake concern. "How can I help you?" I could feel my pulse quickening. I couldn't stand the way he spoke to me, like he was some kind of good guy, some savior. But the truth was that he was nothing more than a coward who couldn't keep his hands off another man's wife. "No," I said sharply, my voice growing colder. "There's nothing to help. You've been sleeping with my wife, and I'm here to make sure you understand just how big of a mistake that was." His eyes widened for a second before he quickly regained his composure. He took a step back, trying to put some distance between us. "I don't know what you're talking about. I think you have the wrong." "No," I cut him off. "I don't have the wrong person. I've seen the messages. I've seen the receipts. I know what's been going on." For a moment, he looked guilty. But then, just as quickly, he went back to that fake calm. "Look, I'm sorry for what happened," he said, as if he was doing me a favor by apologizing. "But you need to understand that your wife was unhappy. She came to me for comfort, and things just happened. It wasn't planned." I could feel my blood boiling. "You think that makes it okay?" I spat. "You think I'll just sit back and accept your pathetic excuse? You don't get to just say sorry and expect me to forget everything." He backed away slowly, trying to hold on to his composure. "Listen, I didn't want this to happen. I'm just trying to be honest here. We both made mistakes, and I don't need your apologies," I interrupted. "I don't need you to justify what you did. You knew exactly what you were doing, and you didn't care. You thought you could just waltz in and take what was mine, and now you're going to pay for it." Mark raised his hands in surrender, but his eyes were cold. "Look, I don't want any trouble. I didn't come here to fight. I don't think this is the way to handle things." The nerve of him. He wasn't even sorry. He wasn't even apologizing because he felt bad. He was apologizing because he didn't want the confrontation. He didn't want to face the music. But he was going to. "I don't care what you think is the right way to handle things," I growled. "I don't care about your feelings. You crossed a line, and now it's my turn to make sure you understand just how bad that was." I took a step forward, closing the gap between us. He took a quick step back, but I wasn't done yet. "You don't get to walk away from this. I'm not going to let you go without facing some sort of consequence. And don't think for a second that you're getting away with this without me making sure you know exactly what I think of you." Mark looked like he wanted to say something, but he was at a loss for words. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. He had nothing to say, nothing that could excuse his actions. I knew in that moment that I had won. I had taken control of the situation. And while I still felt that anger, that hurt deep inside me, I knew that confronting him was the first step to getting the closure I needed. I left the law office with my heart pounding in my chest, feeling a mixture of relief and fury. Confronting Mark had been both cathartic and horrifying. I had gotten my words out, made him understand the depth of the damage he had caused. But deep down, I knew that confronting him wasn't going to be enough. He was just one part of the betrayal. The real source of my pain was Jessica. The anger still swirled in my chest as I drove back home. Every time I thought about her, about the way she had been so calm, so cold during the confrontation, I felt a new wave of disgust. I had loved her. I had trusted her with my life. And now, she was gone. She had chosen him, and she had done it with no hesitation. She had done it while she was still living under my roof, while I was still loving her. It was hard to even comprehend. When I got home, the house felt emptier than ever. The silence was deafening, and it made the sting of betrayal feel even worse. I walked through the rooms, touching things she had left behind. The way she had decorated, the little details, her perfume lingering on the pillow, her favorite books still on the shelf. It was all so hollow now. Nothing mattered. She had destroyed everything, and there was no way to get it back. I stood in the kitchen for what felt like hours, just staring at the coffee machine. The small things were the hardest to handle, the tiny moments that made up our life together. They were all shattered now, like broken glass on the floor, impossible to put back together. But there was something I needed to do. I needed to make a decision. I needed to decide what came next. I couldn't live like this, in this limbo, pretending like everything was normal when I knew it wasn't. I grabbed my phone and sent a message to Jessica. It wasn't an angry message. It wasn't a message to plead with her to come back. It was just a simple message. We need to talk. That's all it said. I wasn't going to beg her to come back. I wasn't going to beg for an explanation. But I needed closure. I needed to know why. I needed to hear her admit the truth, not just about what she had done, but about why she had done it. A few hours later, my phone buzzed with her response. I'm not sure there's anything left to talk about. I felt a lump form in my throat. She was still so cold, still so indifferent. But I couldn't let her get away with it. Not like this. Not when everything I had given her had been torn apart. I responded, I don't care what you think. I need to hear it from you. I need to know why. She didn't reply immediately, but I could see her typing. Then the message came through. I don't love you anymore. It's not about you. It's about me. I've been unhappy for a long time, and I don't want to be with you anymore. Her words were like a slap in the face. I don't love you anymore. That was it. That was the final nail in the coffin. All the time we had spent together, all the years I had invested gone. And for what? For her to tell me she didn't love me anymore? I closed my eyes for a moment, trying to breathe through the pain. But there was no getting around it. She had made her choice. She had chosen him, and she had chosen to end our marriage without even a second thought. I didn't reply to her message. There was nothing left to say. I knew what I had to do now. I had to start rebuilding my life. It wasn't going to be easy, but it was the only choice I had left. I couldn't keep holding on to something that wasn't there anymore. I couldn't keep pretending that everything was okay when it wasn't. I needed to let go. But even as I made that decision, a part of me couldn't help but feel the deep, aching emptiness that came with losing her. I had loved her with everything I had. I had given her everything. And now, she was gone. Just like that. But as much as the pain stung, I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to let her destroy me. She had made her choice. And now, it was time for me to make mine. I picked up my phone again and called my lawyer. It was time to make it official. Time to move on. The days following my decision to file for divorce felt like a blur. I had done what I needed to do, and I knew there was no turning back now. But even with the decision made, I still found myself constantly battling the emptiness that came with it. Jessica's absence was deafening. I thought I had been prepared for it, but I wasn't. There were still so many things that reminded me of her, and it was impossible to escape the memories. The house felt hollow, a shell of what it once was. But there was something that had changed inside me. A shift. I had finally taken control of my life, and as much as it hurt, as much as I felt the weight of her betrayal, I knew that I was no longer the man I had been. I wasn't going to sit around and wallow in my pain. I had been given a second chance, even if I hadn't asked for it. I had to find a way to move forward, to rebuild myself. The first thing I did was throw myself into work. I knew it was a distraction, but it was one that worked. It gave me a sense of purpose, a reason to get out of bed in the morning. I started making plans for the future. Small steps, one at a time, but they were steps nonetheless. I wasn't going to let Jessica's actions define me. I was going to create a new life for myself, even if it meant doing it alone. I didn't reach out to her again. She had made it clear that she didn't want to have anything to do with me. She had moved on, and I wasn't going to chase her. The last thing I wanted was to beg for her love. She had already made her choice, and now, it was time for me to make mine. But it wasn't easy. The nights were the hardest. That's when the loneliness would creep in, when the silence of the house felt like it was suffocating me. I'd lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything that had happened. The betrayal, the lies, the way she had turned everything we had into nothing. And I wondered if I would ever be able to trust someone again. But I also knew that I couldn't let her actions dictate the rest of my life. I wasn't going to let her win. I wasn't going to let her turn me into someone who couldn't move forward. I had to be strong, not just for me, but for the life I still had to live. One evening, as I was heading to bed, I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror. I looked different. Tired, yes, but stronger in a way. The man who had once been so in love, so trusting, was gone. He had been replaced by someone who had been through hell and come out the other side. A man who had learned the hard way that love wasn't always enough, that sometimes people you trusted could betray you in the most painful ways. But that man was also learning to rebuild. He was learning that pain didn't have to define him, that it could be the catalyst for something better. He was learning that it was okay to let go. And so, I decided that night to take another step forward. I called a therapist, someone I could talk to, someone who could help me make sense of everything I was feeling. I needed help. I couldn't do this alone. It wasn't about getting Jessica back. It wasn't about revenge. It was about healing, about learning how to love myself again after everything that had happened. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of therapy sessions, long nights, and difficult realizations. But there were also moments of peace. Moments where I could feel the weight of the past starting to lift, even if just a little. I was starting to rebuild my life. I was starting to feel like myself again. And then, one evening, I got a call. It was from Jessica. My heart skipped a beat as I saw her name on the screen. I hadn't heard from her since that day. I sent the text asking for the truth. I almost didn't pick up. Part of me wanted to just ignore her, to leave her in the past where she belonged. But I knew I had to. It was time to face whatever it was she wanted to say. "Hello," I said, my voice calm but guarded. "John," she said, her voice softer than I had expected. I don't know where to start. I've been thinking a lot about everything, and I realize now how much I've hurt you. I never meant for any of this to happen." I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to scream, to demand answers. But another part of me just wanted closure. I had been through enough, and I wasn't sure if hearing her side of things would change anything. "Why now?" I asked, my voice tight with emotion. "Why are you calling me now?" "I don't know," she said, almost sounding like she was on the verge of tears. I think I needed to hear myself say it out loud. "I know I can't take back what I did, but I'm sorry, John. I am truly sorry for everything." I stayed silent for a long time, just listening to her words. Part of me wanted to believe her, wanted to believe that she was sorry. But another part of me knew that words were just that, words. They didn't change anything. They didn't change the fact that she had betrayed me, that she had walked away from everything we had built together. "I don't think I can forgive you," I said, the words coming out quieter than I had intended. "I can't forget what you did." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "I understand," she finally said. "But I needed you to know. I needed to tell you that I'm sorry." And then, she hung up. The days after Jessica's call were a strange mix of closure and confusion. Her apology, as unexpected as it was, left me with more questions than answers. But I had come to understand something important in the time since she left. I couldn't hold on to the past any longer. I couldn't keep waiting for answers that would never come, and I couldn't keep replaying the betrayal in my head. The truth was, as much as I wanted to believe her, I didn't think I could ever forgive her. I knew I was at a crossroads. The phone call had made one thing clear. Jessica wasn't coming back. She had made her choice, and no amount of apologies would change what had happened. But that didn't mean I had to stay stuck in this dark place, trapped by the weight of her betrayal. So, I made a decision. I needed to start living again. I needed to reclaim my life, my identity, my future. I wasn't going to let her betrayal define me any longer. I had to build something new, something for myself, even if it meant taking it one step at a time. The first step was simple. I started going out again. At first, it felt strange, like I was stepping into a world that had moved on without me. But as the days passed, I began to enjoy the small moments of freedom. I spent time with friends, went out to new places, tried new things. I reconnected with hobbies I had neglected while focusing on Jessica. It wasn't easy, but I was starting to remember who I was before I had become so consumed by my marriage. I also focused on my work. I had always been dedicated, but now, work became my sanctuary. It gave me purpose. It gave me something to pour my energy into, something that didn't remind me of the past. I took on new projects, set new goals, and slowly, I started to feel a sense of accomplishment again. But even with all these distractions, there were still moments, quiet, lonely moments, when I would remember her. The way she laughed, the way we would talk late into the night, the life we had shared. It was like a ghost lingering in the back of my mind, reminding me of the love I had lost. I tried dating again, but it was hard. I couldn't escape the feeling that I was comparing every woman to Jessica. But what I soon realized was that no one would ever measure up. I wasn't ready. And it wasn't fair to anyone, least of all myself, to jump into something new before I had healed. One evening, a few months after the divorce papers had been filed, I was walking through the city when I ran into someone I hadn't seen in years, my old college roommate, Mike. He had been one of the few people I had kept in touch with, even during the mess of my marriage. We caught up, talked about life, and shared a few laughs. It was refreshing. It felt like a normal conversation, one that didn't involve the past, didn't involve Jessica. As we were saying goodbye, Mike said something that struck me. You know, man, life goes on. You can't let one person stop you from living it. You're stronger than this, stronger than you think. It was simple advice, but it hit home. He was right. Life did go on. I didn't have to be defined by Jessica's betrayal. I didn't have to let her take everything from me, even if it felt like she had. I had a future to build, and it was up to me to take the steps forward. That night, I thought about everything, about the betrayal, about the pain, about the phone call, and for the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of peace. It was a peace that came from acceptance. I accepted that things were never going to be the same, that I couldn't change the past, but I could change the future. And that was all that mattered now. The next morning, I woke up early, feeling lighter than I had in months. I went for a run, something I hadn't done in a while, and as I ran through the streets of the city, I realized that I wasn't running from my past anymore. I was running toward my future. As the days passed, I started to put the final pieces of my life back together. I didn't forget the pain, but I learned to live with it. I learned that life wasn't about avoiding the hurt. It was about moving forward despite it. Then, one day, out of the blue, I received a message from Jessica. It had been months since we last spoke, and part of me wasn't sure if I even wanted to open it. But something inside me told me to do it. I opened the message, and it was short, just a few lines. I know I can't change the past, but I wanted to let you know that I'm truly sorry for everything. I hope you find happiness. I stared at the message for a moment, reading the words over and over. And then, I did something I hadn't thought I would ever do. I smiled. It wasn't a smile of forgiveness, not yet, but it was a smile of peace. I had moved on. I was finally free. I closed my phone and went about my day, feeling more content with myself than I ever had before. I wasn't sure what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid to face it. The pain would always be there, but it wouldn't control me. I was stronger now. I was ready to live again.